What truly disturbs you? It's a question worth asking. For most of us, true fear isn't found in the fantastic tales of ghosts or goblins. The things that truly burrow into our minds, the stories that keep us awake long after the credits have rolled, are different. They are the splinters of reality. The quiet, horrifying moments when the world as we know it tilts on its axis and shows us a glimpse of something terrible underneath. A disturbing story isn't about what might be hiding in the dark. It's about the violation of what we hold sacred, the safety of our homes, the integrity of our own bodies, and the unbreakable laws of reality itself. Tonight, we are not telling ghost stories. We are exploring 3 documented true accounts of events so profoundly unsettling, they left a permanent scar on the souls of those who experienced them. These stories are longer, more detailed, and more disturbing. Prepare yourself. The concept of home is more than just walls and a roof. It's a sanctuary. The one place on earth where you can lock the door and feel completely, utterly safe from the outside world. Our first story is about a young woman named Catherine and the slow, horrifying realization that her sanctuary had been breached in the most intimate way imaginable, long before she ever knew it. In 2012, Catherine moved into a small, charming rental house in a quiet neighborhood in North Carolina. It was the first time she'd lived completely alone, and she cherished the solitude. The house was older, with the usual quirks, creaky floorboards, a drafty window here and there, but it was hers. For the first month, life was peaceful. Then, the small, explainable things began to happen. It started with food. A carton of milk that seemed to empty faster than she was drinking it. A box of crackers gone when she was sure it was half full. She chalked it up to a busy schedule and a bad memory. Then, she'd come home from work to find the thermostat turned down a few degrees, a chill in the air she couldn't account for. She blamed faulty wiring. Weeks turned into months. The small oddities became more personal, more unsettling. She found a book she'd been reading, left open to a different page. The TV remote would be on the coffee table when she was certain she'd left it on the couch. Each event was small enough to be dismissed, to be rationalized away. But together, they created a growing hum of anxiety in the back of her mind. A feeling that she was losing her grip, that her own home was subtly gaslighting her. Then came the sounds. At night, as she lay in bed, she'd hear faint scratching noises coming from the ceiling above her bedroom. Rats, she thought with a shudder, or squirrels. She called an exterminator. He came, inspected the attic and the roof, and found nothing. No nests, no droppings, no signs of entry. He sealed a few small cracks just in case, and charged her $200 for her peace of mind. But the sounds didn't stop. If anything, they became more distinct. Not just scratching now, but a soft, shuffling sound. The sound of movement. The paranoia began to take hold. Catherine started double-checking the locks on her doors and windows every night. She felt a constant, unshakable feeling of being watched, even when she was completely alone. The house no longer felt like a sanctuary. It felt like a cage she was sharing with something else. Her friends thought she was just stressed, unable to handle living alone. She started to believe them. The breaking point came one evening when she was talking to her mother on the phone. complaining about the persistent animal noises. Her mother offered a simple suggestion that would unravel Catherine's world. "Why don't you set up one of those little webcam things?" she said. "Maybe you can see what it is and show it to the landlord." That night, Catherine bought a cheap motion-activated security camera. Before going to bed, she placed it on her dresser, aiming it towards the ceiling where the sounds were most common. She fell into a restless sleep, hoping to wake up to a short video of a raccoon or a mouse, something that would finally give her a logical answer. The next morning, she checked the camera's app on her phone. Her heart sank. The motion sensor had been triggered multiple times throughout the night. She took a deep breath and played the first clip. The video was dark, grainy. For a full minute, nothing happened. Then, a section of the ceiling, a small attic access panel she barely knew was there, began to move. It was pushed aside, slowly, silently, and then a face peered down from the darkness. It wasn't an animal, it was a man. His face was gaunt, his hair matted, his eyes wide and dark in the infrared light. He watched her sleeping form for several long, silent minutes. Then, he silently lowered himself from the attic, landing with practiced softness on the floor of her bedroom. He moved through her room, looking at her things, before disappearing out her bedroom door. The clip ended. Her blood turned to ice. She frantically clicked the next clip. It showed the man in her kitchen. He was eating her food, drinking her milk straight from the carton. He moved around her home with a quiet familiarity, like he owned the place. The final clip showed him re-entering her bedroom, climbing back into the attic, and pulling the panel shut just before her alarm went off. Catherine was not alone. She had never been alone. The strange smells, the missing food, the thermostat changes, the noises in the ceiling. It wasn't a ghost, and it wasn't her imagination. It was him. A man had been living in her attic for months, emerging at night to walk through her home, watch her sleep, and exist as a parasite in her life. The police arrived and found his nest, the dirty sleeping bag, wrappers from her food, empty water bottles, and the worst discovery of all, several of her personal belongings, a hairbrush, a scarf, a photograph from her desk, had been taken up into the darkness with him. He was gone, having likely fled when he heard her on the phone that morning. He was never identified. Catherine broke her lease and moved out that day, but the horror never left her. The disturbing truth of her experience is a violation far deeper than a simple break-in. It's the knowledge that the place she felt safest was, in fact, a shared exhibition. That every private moment, every night of sleep, was observed by hungry eyes from the darkness just above her head. Our next story explores a different kind of sanctuary, the sanctity of our own minds, our own consciousness. It's a place of absolute privacy. But what happens when that final refuge is breached, and your mind is the only thing left, trapped inside a body that has betrayed you? This is a true account of a phenomenon known as anesthetic awareness. We'll call our subject Mark. Mark was a healthy 45-year-old man who went into the hospital for a routine, scheduled abdominal surgery. He wasn't worried. He'd been under anesthesia before. He knew the routine. The friendly chat with the anesthesiologist, the countdown from 10, the gentle drift into a dreamless, painless sleep. Lying on the operating table, he felt the familiar, cool liquid enter his IV. The doctor told him to count backward from 10. 10, 9, 8. His eyelids grew heavy. A pleasant, floating sensation began to take over. 7. He felt his body go limp. This was it, the peaceful oblivion. But something was wrong. His body was asleep, but his mind was not. He was paralyzed. He couldn't open his eyes, couldn't move a finger, couldn't make a sound. But he could hear everything. He heard the nurses talking, the clink of surgical instruments being laid out on a tray, the surgeon discussing the first incision. Panic, pure and absolute, exploded in his silent mind. He tried to scream, but his vocal cords were as frozen as his limbs. He tried to thrash, to give any sign that he was awake. Nothing. He was a prisoner in his own body, a ghost in the machine. Then he felt it, the cold, wet sensation of the antiseptic wipe across his stomach, the clinical, sharp smell of iodine. He felt the drape being placed over his body, isolating the surgical site. His mind screamed, pleaded, begged for someone to notice. But to everyone in the room, he was just a perfectly anesthetized patient. He heard the surgeon say, "Scalpel," and then he felt a pressure on his skin, a sharp, searing line of fire. It was the first incision. Pain, unlike anything he had ever imagined, erupted through his consciousness. It was a white-hot, blinding agony that had nowhere to go. He couldn't scream, couldn't faint, couldn't escape. His mind was trapped in a feedback loop of pure, unending torture. He focused all his will, all his desperate energy, on trying to make one single tear fall from his eye, hoping a nurse might see it. But his body would not obey. He was completely, utterly helpless. He could only lie there and experience an agony that no human being is meant to endure, all while hearing the calm, professional chatter of the people inflicting it. When it was finally over, he felt the final stitches, the removal of the drapes. He heard the surgeon say the operation was a success. Then slowly, as the paralytic agent wore off before the anesthetic, he felt a tingling in his fingers. With the last ounce of his will, he managed to make one finger twitch. A nurse noticed. The aftermath was a whirlwind of confusion, apologies, and psychological evaluation. The hospital confirmed he had experienced a rare case of anesthetic awareness, but the confirmation did nothing to heal the trauma. Mark was left with severe PTSD. For years, he suffered from horrific nightmares, a paralyzing fear of doctors, and the lingering, disturbing memory of being a silent, screaming passenger during his own dissection. His story is a testament to one of the most terrifying truths of modern medicine, that the state between life and death is not always a peaceful sleep, but sometimes a waking nightmare from which there is no escape. Our final story is not one of physical threat or bodily harm. It's a story about a different kind of disturbance, a violation of the very laws of time, space, and life itself. It's about a moment so strange and so specific It suggests our reality is far more mysterious than we believe. This account comes from a young woman named Chloe, and it concerns her beloved grandfather. Her grandfather was in his late 80s, living in a nursing home 3 hours away from her. His health had been declining for some time, and she knew his time was limited. She spoke to him on the phone every few days, cherishing their conversations. One Tuesday afternoon, Chloe was driving home from work, navigating the usual rush hour traffic. She was stopped at a busy intersection, waiting for the light to change, her mind on a million different things. As she glanced at the crowd of people waiting on the crosswalk, her eyes locked on a familiar figure. It was her grandfather. There was no doubt in her mind. He was standing on the corner, clear as day. He was wearing his favorite old tweed hat and the comfortable jacket he always wore, even in the summer. But he didn't look sick or frail. He looked healthy, peaceful, and content. Chloe's mind reeled with confusion. What was he doing here? How did he get 3 hours away from his nursing home? Was he lost? As if hearing her thoughts, the man, her grandfather, turned his head and looked directly at her across 2 lanes of traffic. He smiled. It was a warm, gentle smile she knew so well. And then he raised his hand and gave her a slow, deliberate wave. A final wave goodbye. The light turned green. The car behind her honked. Chloe, flustered and shocked, drove through the intersection, her head craned around to keep sight of him. But in the chaos of traffic, he was gone. She immediately pulled into a parking lot, her hands trembling. She called her mother. "Mom, I just saw Grandpa. He's here, in the city, on a street corner." Her mother's voice was filled with confusion. "Chloe, what are you talking about? I just spoke to the nurse 10 minutes ago. He's in his room, resting. He hasn't left the facility in weeks." Chloe couldn't explain it. It had been so real. The hat, the jacket, the smile. It was him. She spent the rest of the evening trying to rationalize it. A stranger who looked remarkably like him. A waking dream brought on by stress. But she couldn't shake the feeling of that wave, the finality of it. That night, around 11 p.m., her phone rang. It was her mother. Her voice was thick with tears. Her grandfather had passed away peacefully in his sleep. Chloe sat in stunned silence, a cold dread washing over her. She asked her mother the question she was terrified to ask. When did it happen?" Her mother, through her sobs, told her the time of death that the nurses had recorded. It was 4:37 p.m., the exact moment Chloe had been stopped at that intersection. The exact moment her grandfather had smiled and given her one last, impossible wave goodbye. What Chloe saw is known in folklore as a fetch or a wraith, a spiritual doppelganger of a person that appears to loved ones at the moment of their death. It wasn't a ghost of the departed. It was an echo of a life as it was passing, a final, loving message sent across the boundaries of reality. Her story isn't one of terror in the traditional sense. There was no monster, no threat, but it is, perhaps, the most disturbing of all, because it presents a truth that is both beautiful and terrifying. That the world we see is not all there is, that life and death are connected in ways we cannot comprehend, and that sometimes love can be so strong it breaks the laws of physics just to say one last goodbye. The violation of the home, the betrayal of the body, the breaking of reality. 3 stories, all true, all centered on a different kind of disturbance. They remind us that the things we should fear most are not the creatures of fantasy, but the chilling possibilities that exist within our very real world. They are the splinters in our mind that, once embedded, can never truly be removed. What is the most unsettling story you've ever heard? Share it in the comments below. And if you appreciate these explorations into the darker side of true events, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more content that will challenge your sense of reality. Thank you for watching.